everyone, good evening. You're watching News Epicenter with me, Maria Shakil. Budget 2022 has been called a budget of continuity. One where Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has focused on ramping up public sector capital spending. Despite the elections of 5 states around the corner, the Finance Minister refrained from measures that put more money in the hands of people, whether through increasing cash transfers to farmers under PM Kisan from the current rupees of 6,000 per year, or by providing income tax relief to the middle class. In a first interview to a private news channel after the union budget yesterday, the Finance Minister clarified government's stand on a wide range of issues, from fiscal deficit to cryptocurrency to the critical issue of inflation. The FM pledged the government's commitment towards disinvestment and, without mincing words, stated that more such decisions are in store. The criticism that came from the opposition, remember, yesterday was on expected lines, that there was nothing in it for Aam Aadmi, and also that this was perhaps a net zero budget within quotes. Former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram had in fact gone a step further, calling the speech the most capitalist budget speech ever. Here's how Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman responded to that.
You know, the former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram says that your budget speech was the most capitalist budget speech ever he's heard. You know, you take that as a compliment?
Well, for a person who otherwise, and the party to which he belongs, otherwise claims that 1991 opened up the world to India and India to the world, globalization was brought in, and that was the way in which Congress party always wants all of us to remember that we were the ones who opened socialist India to the world. For them to say this was the capitalist speech, obviously it will certainly be a certificate.
Yeah. And considering that in 1997 his budget was the dream budget.
And it is the author of that budget who says this is the most capitalist.
Let me bring in my guests now, because we'll be discussing the various parts of that exclusive interview over the next 30 minutes. Gurcharan Das, economist, Dr. Shama Mohammed, Congress spokesperson, Zafar Islam, Member of Parliament of the BJP, and Shamika Ravi, Vice President ORF, Economic Policy and Brookings Institute. I'm going to begin with you, Dr. Shama Mohammed. A budget that has been welcomed by one and all, but the opposition chose the most expected route of criticism. But I fail to understand, how is this budget really a capitalist budget speech ever? And that is the reason why Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman today says that it's a certificate that she takes it from former Finance Minister.
Yeah, first and foremost, when Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman was asked yesterday that, you know what, why didn't you do tax cuts? Her arrogance came out. You know what? I did not increase the taxes. This is the way a finance minister of a country where more than 84% of people have lost their income speaks to the crowd. This is the way the finance minister speaks in a country where the lower part, 20% of our population, have dipped their income by 53%, and the top part have increased their income by 39%. Let me make it very clear why it's a capitalist budget. First and foremost, where are the jobs? She said we are going to have 60 lakh jobs in the next 5 years. In 2014, they said 2 crore jobs per year. That should have been 10 crores by now. So that's why we don't believe them. This is the year 2022 when farmer incomes had to double. Here we had to have double the income. Why has that not happened? What has happened to the 100 smart cities? Basically, right now, let me tell you, Maria, what we need is demand and consumption has gone down. We need to increase those two.
Zafar Islam will respond to that. Zafar Islam, you know, job creation was the bigger expectation as far as this budget is concerned. Because of the unemployment being close to 8%, there was this sense that there will be some announcements related to certain sectors which need that boost. My question is, where is that roadmap?
Well, Maria, if you really analyze the budget, and I'm sure that Gurcharanji is sitting here, somebody who understands economy will definitely speak for it. That the focus of the government was very clear that they just wanted to maintain the continuity. After 2 years of during COVID, we had less revenue and we had more expenditure. We have really taken care of all the marginalized section of the society, whatever their need be. We have taken care of them. We have safeguarded the interests of common man on the street. But having said that, the economy is back in order. We have to push further the economy so that it's run on its own, and there is a huge potential for growth, and we wanted to capitalize on it. Now you have to understand that why government has focused on capex, why government has prioritized capital expenditure over the revenue expenditure, primarily because this is something which is important for all of us to understand, that aggregate demand, what Shama Muhammad was talking about, that we should have focus on demand. Say that the global demand is very, very strong. The local demand, aggregate demand in last 3 months, it has come off slightly. But with investment in infrastructure space, the kind of a capex which has been announced, it will create a lot of job for sure, and the demand will improve. As a result, the overall demand will improve, and the capacity, what we have, capacity utilization, which is
Editor-in-Chief Rahul Joshi has spoken on inflation and also about that LIC IPO will be launched this year itself, and she also spoke about the privatization of Air India and clarified that it was important to keep transparency and compliance at every step of this process. Let's listen in to those two chunks of the interview, and then I'm going to go back to the experts on the panel.
You know, I think that the Air India privatization was a big achievement for this government. I think Neelachal Ispat has also finally found a buyer, you know. But of course, ye dil mange more, you know. So what exactly are you planning to do with BPCL? Are you hopeful that it will get done this year, in the next year? And what about others like the Shipping Corporation of India and BEML?
As I said, in this budget, if you would have noticed, since right up front I've said that I'm underlining the continuity of messages and policy prescriptions mentioned in the last budget. I continue with that. So I actually don't think it's necessary for me to list out everything that I listed out last time, but my commitment to it continues. Air India was a particularly complex subject, and in that too, to keep the transparency at every stage, to be completely compliant in terms of all the diligences that had to be done. It took quite a lot of working together with a lot of people, and that's how it should be, because we are accountable. And therefore, what I would suggest is my commitment remains, it continues, and I shall take things forward even on that account.
If I may just ask you a little bit about the LIC IPO. What exactly is the status of that?
It's going fine. It'll happen.
Okay. And this year, do you know?
I think the schedule is, yes, it should happen this year itself.
And how much are you planning to divest, and what is the valuation? Some benchmark?
We'll announce it at a time.
Okay, but it'll happen this year, and the money will come in this.
Yes.
Okay. Let me come to something that is, a niggling issue, a global headache in some senses, inflation. Look at the US, for instance. Our consumer inflation has obviously stayed in the 4 to 6% range. But, if that were to really go up in the coming years, do you think that could throw some kind of a spanner in the works?
I think globally, all economies are worried about inflation. And that's not to say, okay, so what? Does it affect your planning or not? It does affect my planning. I'm only trying to say this inflation, particularly because of certain global factors of metals being very highly priced, energy, at least the fossil fuel being very expensive, the production being cut down, the cartel or cartelization of those who are fixing the prices, or all that is having a bearing on all over the world, and certainly on us as well. Yes. And we also have realized that we are at a stage where we are making a transition towards climate friendly steps, moving out of fossil fuel, and at this time we probably even, like many countries, want to look at gas coming in, natural gas coming in to replace many of what was dependent on fossil fuel. But at this time, with international natural gas price also going up, you're facing a situation where you're planning for something at a transitional stage, and that also is now going to be dearer. And as a result, your planning is also getting adjusted as we go along to look at giving more incentives for electric vehicles.
Shamika Ravi, yesterday when we looked at the fine print and we saw that the disinvestment target had been lowered, one view certainly was that this was signaling perhaps the government is underconfident and having a conservative approach. Now with this response that has come from the finance minister, are you of the opinion that the disinvestment targets are also going to be met soon? Shamika, if you can hear me. Hello? Shamika Ravi? Okay. Gurcharan Das, take that question, and I'm going to get that audio fixed with Shamika Ravi in just a bit.
Yes, I can.
Okay, Shamika Ravi, the question that I'm asking here is that the disinvestment target has been lowered to 78,000 crore this year from 1.75 lakh crore budgeted earlier. So the sentiment certainly was that this government is underconfident and hence they are projecting this conservative number. Now with this interview to the network, it's very clear that even on that front, the government clearly has a roadmap ready.
Yes, Mari, I think the roadmap is there, and I'm expecting the next 2 months we'll hear more on LIC, etc. But clearly, last year's targets were over-optimistic, and I'll tell you why. Because, it has been 20 years. The Vajpayee regime is when you saw privatization or disinvestment take on a major role. And until today, you see that judicial entanglements of it remain. So privatization is really not such a simple task, I think. I think they overestimated their capability to convince the courts to join in. And clearly, I think that is the biggest impediment. I don't think it is the markets. I don't think it is even political. I really think it is the judicial entanglement which concerns them. And therefore, I think the targets for next year are far more pragmatic, much more realistic.
Okay. So that's a realistic approach is what Shamika Ravi here is saying. Gurcharan Das, come in on this, the question regarding inflation. That is something that the opposition continues to target and question the government on.
Yes, you're right. Inflation is an issue. But if you have a high growth economy, and if this growth target of 8.5%, if we can move towards that, I think on its own, the supply side will help in solving some of the inflationary. Now, the inflationary pressures are from abroad, and this budget has assumed an oil price average over the year of $70 to $75. It's currently 87. Now, I personally think that 70-75 is realistic for a whole year, and it should be achieved. And the main thing, what is the most virtuous thing about the budget is that it is a job-creating, high-growth budget. It follows upon another excellent budget of last year. So if there's continuity, and if these, and frankly, those people who are saying, oh, but we didn't give money to the poor, etc. Well, the assumption is that COVID, you won't have another round like the Delta variant of COVID. So the assumption, now if there is another COVID, lethal COVID, which will require lockdown, then obviously the money for Manrega will have to be upped again. The money for food security will have to be raised. and some of the money on.
Okay, then in that case,
actually
Gurcharan
come
Das,
down.
how are you viewing this budget allocation, in fact, being lowered for Manrega from 93,000 crore in 2021-2022 to 73,000 crore this fiscal?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Oh, well, I think that's very simple. The lowering is simply the result of assuming that the COVID from now on will be a benign kind of thing, and you have to make some assumptions. But if the assumption turns out to be wrong and you have a COVID crisis again, then all bets are off, and you'll have to spend on food security, you'll have to spend more on Manrega. And if I were the finance minister, I would have said so. I would have said that these are the assumptions. We are making an assumption of a normal monsoon. We're an assumption of oil prices being 70 to 75. All these are what, but we have to make some assumptions. And I think they make sensible assumptions. I think this is a good job-creating budget, and the jobs are the biggest imperative for our country. And if they keep doing this for 2-3 years, this kind of investment oriented, you can either spend. There are two ways, Maria.
Yes.
You can get out of an economic slowdown by putting money in people's hands or by investment. The reason why investment is better is because it creates assets and it creates long-term jobs. Whereas if you put money in people's hands, they will spend. Yes, that will get the factories moving, but it's a short-term thing.
Okay.
Here, I'm very happy to say that they're going for the long term. And that is what makes this
Just
budget
hold on to your
a
thoughts,
good
because
budget.
Rahul
And I'm
Gandhi,
not a
Congress
BJP
Member of Parliament, is
spokesperson.
speaking
I
in
was-
Parliament. Let's listen in.
Beloved country standing where it is standing, completely isolated on the outside, fighting on the inside, institutions captured, states not able to speak to each other. This worries me. It frightens me for my country. And so that is why I thought it was important that I speak today. I know that many of you will just rubbish what I'm saying. I understand it. That's what you've been told to do. And I'm happy to let you do it. But remember what I said. You are putting this nation, this wonderful nation and its people at huge risk. Stop. Thank you.
कमलेश पासवान जी, आपको मौका है। कमलेश पासवान, प्लीज प्लीज आप बैठिए। आप क्यों गए? बैठिए कमलेश पासवान जी।
राहुल भाई अपने भाषण में मेरा नाम लिए और दलित कहकर मुझे कहा कि आई एम इन अ रॉन्ग पार्टी, यू आर इन अ रॉन्ग पार्टी। अध्यक्ष जी, मैं इनको बताना चाहता हूं कि आपकी नीति क्या रही है। आपके दादी की, आपके पिताजी की, कांग्रेस की जो नीति रही है, आज तक हमारे समाज को फूट डालो, राज करो। और उसी के नाते जब पूरे देश की जनता इस चीज को समझ गई है, तो यही हाल अध्यक्ष जी, इसीलिए यही हाल हो गया है कि मेरे जैसे एक छोटे से सांसद, कहां बांसगांव, कहां राहुल गांधी और कमलेश पासवान के बाद बोलने का इनको मौका मिला। और ये कोई कर सकता है, और हम सब लोगों का सौभाग्यशाली अध्यक्ष जी कि जिस पार्टी में हूं, मेरी पार्टी ने मुझे 3 बार सांसद बनाने का, इस उम्र में बनने का अवसर दिया, टिकट दिया। इससे ज्यादा मुझे और क्या चाहिए। ये मेरे आउटलाइंस को करेंगे। मेरी खुद एक पहचान है। 3 बार सांसद रहा हूं, 2 बार विधायक रहा हूं। मेरे स्वर्गीय पिताजी ने कहा कि मेरे पिताजी मारे गए, मेरे भी पिताजी अध्यक्ष जी मारे गए, मेरे भी पिताजी जो है रैली में मारे गए। तो मैं भी जानता हूं दर्द को, इस देश को और इस क्षेत्र के सभी चीजों को जानता हूं। तो जब कभी किसी के बारे में पॉइंट करें तो अपने मैं ये नहीं कहूंगा असंसदीय भाषा हो जाएगी। हैसियत कमलेश पासवान को इनके बस के नहीं है कि ये अपने पार्टी में लाकर मुझे खुश कर सकें। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद अध्यक्ष जी।
टी.आर. बालू जी।
Honorable Speaker, sir, I want to profoundly thank you for giving me this opportunity.
बालू साहब, आप भाषण बोल रहे हैं, सब कांग्रेस के लोग जा रहे हैं।
No, sir, they are with me only. We are all one, sir. We are all one only. And on behalf of my leader,
आपका बायकॉट कर रहे हैं।
Dr. Talabadi, M.K. Stalin and the party, I would like to thank profoundly to speak on the Thanksgiving motion for the speech made by the Honorable President of India on 31st January 21 in the floor of the Central Hall, in the both houses of Parliament, and I once again thank you for giving me this opportunity.
So clearly fireworks in the budget session of Parliament there. And as mentioned in the budget speech yesterday, the Finance Minister was non-committal on introducing crypto bill this season, but was sure that digital currency will be a reality in India sooner than later. Listen in.
The digital currency by RBI, when is it likely to happen? Some details that you could share at this point?
When is it likely to happen is something which I can only answer by saying one word: sooner rather than later. Because once it goes through the Parliament, I've just placed it there, it has to get cleared, and post that the RBI will move forward to take the cabinet approval and then go ahead with issuing the digital rupee, I suppose. So it should happen sooner.
And it will have a new name, different name?
Well, we don't know yet. Oh. That's some call which subsequently the cabinet has to take up.
Okay. Will you table a bill on cryptocurrencies in this session? And, is there a hint, in your announcement yesterday of a 30% tax on gains from transfer of virtual digital assets, that, cryptocurrency would be acceptable? I mean, would you like to elaborate? Even the Prime Minister had said that, cryptocurrency should be used to empower democracy, not undermine it. So what are your views on that?
See, from after the tabling of the budget in the Parliament, I'm trying to draw this distinction between privately generated crypto assets, loosely said assets, and what can be a digital currency. Now, private people, creative with digital knowledge, using the blockchain technology and the distributed ledger technology, can always create, but that cannot be the currency. They are some kind of assets. We don't know, we can't define it. I'm not going to define it here. We are consulting, doing a lot of wide-ranging consultation on it. Currency it would be when the Reserve Bank of India, the central bank of any country for that matter, but Reserve Bank in India issues it. So that is why we've gone to the Parliament to say, we put the proposal there to say that the central bank, the Reserve Bank of India, would issue a digital currency. Whereas what happens outside, because they are transactions yielding certain kind of profits, we decided to go ahead with taxing them in the meanwhile. But post the consultation, I will certainly be coming up with a bill. Whether that's possible within this session or not is something which I'll have to see.
On regulating cryptocurrencies, the bill?
I don't know what kind of bill will come, okay. But will it be a bill or will it be, I don't know yet. I'll have to see what the consultation yields.